All right. I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is called Change Through Crisis. And pretty much I got that title from a video, from a video I just finished watching. You know, the brother Bakwara Muth out of Jersey. And he was doing the lesson based off a couple of articles that he had, something about the food crisis. You know, it's going to be worse than 2008 financial crisis. You know, and we remember that very well because that was at the beginning of the YouTube era. And I remember Apostle Gubar and myself, you know, we were hunting high and low for work at that time, and it was tough, you know, so I remember that crisis very well. But nevertheless, you know, when I heard him say that, change through crisis, I was like, yeah, that's a good title for a lesson. Because I was looking for a lesson to go into anyway. And a couple of precepts came to mind. I didn't write anything down, you know, just going to rely solely on the Holy Spirit of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. And Lord's will, I remember them as we go along. And of course, you know, whatever, you know, if I get a chance, check the comment board, you know, whatever precepts, scriptures brothers put on the comment board, you know, we can get into it. But I want to start off with one scripture that popped in my head immediately, and that was the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 4. Now I'm going to start at the 26th verse, and we're going to read down, skip around a little bit. But there's a lot being said here, because what we have to remember is this world was set up. There are heavens on the earth, which means that there are governmental agencies and lofty, you know, established people on the earth that are in a heavenly estate. You know, and those same heavens that were of old, which were empires of old, were destroyed by water back in the days. And this time, the heavens and the earth that is today, meaning the governments, you know, the rulerships, empires of today, and their governmental agencies, so on and so forth, are reserved for fire, meaning destruction of fire. So this world is going to go out with a bang. So what that's going to do ultimately is it's going to bring in change through crisis. You know, as it says here in 2nd Ezra 4 and 26, then answered he me and said, the more thou searchest, the more thou shalt marvel, for the world hasteth fast to pass away, right? And this world is hastening fast to pass away. And really, this is the mindset that we should be as Israelites, you know, hastening the coming of the day of the Lord. As it says in Peter, the captive exile hasteneth that he may be loosed, that he should not die in the prison. So pretty much we should be in the mindset of this place can't go down fast enough, you know, and that is the truth. This place can't go down fast enough, you know, even though we know that it's going at the pace that the Most High wants it to go. We know that it can't go down fast enough, you know, for our liking, you know, but it's not about us, it's about Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. So it says, and cannot comprehend the things that are promised to the righteous in time to come. And this is why you have a lot of questioning from individuals that want physical proof of, you know, of us being Israelites, you know, of the kingdom of heaven, of the things that we speak about. They want physical, tangible proof because they can't comprehend. It doesn't register in their spirit the things that are promised to those that the Lord loves, you know, which is the kingdom of heaven. And they can't understand that. They can't grasp that. That's why they're looking for something, you know, earthly, some visible proof that they can use to reason that out. And the thing that was given to us, you know, to believe, although we never even seen it, you know. It says, for this world is full of unrighteousness and infirmities. And that's why it says that the righteous shall understand, but the wicked shall not understand. We know that ultimately the wicked are the Edomites. but you also have wicked among the other nations, because the Edomites as a whole is a wicked nation, all of them, you know, from the so-called good ones to the worst ones. Among the other nations you have wicked, and even among our own nation, the Israelites, you have wicked that have become more wicked than the wicked, you know. So they could show Esau a thing or two of how to be wicked, you know, because when Jake gets into something, they get in, you know, they become super, you know, super in everything that they get into, you know, a super Sambo, a super Mo, you know, a super, whatever they get into, they excel. So like that shit sounded crazy. Salakia. It says, but as concerning the things whereof thou askest me, I will tell thee, for the evil is sown, but the destruction is not yet come. So pretty much the evil is sown. We see that the inhabitants of the world have not fallen. We see that the wicked are still in power. So that means that the only way a change is going to actually really come, like Sam Cooke said, change is going to come, is going to be through a serious crisis. And that's why it says, and matter of fact, let's get that real quick before we read on. Let's go to Daniel chapter 12. Let's go to Daniel chapter 12 and verse 1. It says, and at that time shall Michael stand up, which Michael is the archangel, you know, right underneath Yahushai, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, because the angels encamp around the righteous. That is, those are the ministering spirits of the Lord, to guide, protect, you know, give understanding to the elect of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. Right. So there's going to be some real serious calamities and crises that's going to be taking place on the earth that are not going to be able to be explained. And pretty much what that's doing is it's ushering in the change of worlds, you know, as the book that Elder Abba Bivens wrote, Change of Worlds, you know. And that change of worlds is not going to come by a smooth transition, as was the case with the Babylonian Empire being transferred over to the hands of the Medo-Persian Empire. It's not going to be a smooth transition like that, because this place is going to go out by violence. So let's go real quick. There was another precept that came to mind earlier, which Barakateh Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, I still remember it. Let's go to Revelation chapter 18 and verse 20. Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets. Yeah, because this is what the prophets and apostles, men of the Lord, the elect, have been waiting for, the destruction of this place. For the Most High hath avenged you on her. And that's pretty much why this place is going to go out with a bang. You know, it's foretold in the scriptures, prophecy, and also for what they did to us as a nation. It says, and a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. So this is that great time of affliction, of judgment that's coming. And before that all happens, you're going to have so much chaos and calamity going on in the streets, not only of America, but of the world. Because remember, this is a worldwide event that's taking place. So there's going to be a calamity that was never, you know, all of the different scenarios that we read about in the scriptures, with different tragedies that have happened around the world in history, are not to be compared to this time that's coming. You see? So it goes on to say, back in Daniel 12 and at the end of 1, it says, and at that time that people shall be delivered, everyone that shall be found written in the book, meaning the elect. All right? Because 2/3 of Israel is going to be totally destroyed. You know, and we don't have a problem with that at all. You know, we actually can't wait for it, because, you know, pretty much as the international banking family say, man, these guys are useless eaters, man. You know, just a waste of fucking space. So I mean, we know that ultimately the Lord set it up that way, but you know, we want the Lord to bring it sooner because this place got to go, man. This place got to go. This place got to go. So going back to 2nd Ezra chapter 4, and let's read 28 again. But as concerning the things whereof thou askest me, I will tell thee. For the evil is sown, but the destruction thereof is not yet come. Right, and that's what we're waiting for, this change to come. If therefore that which is sown be not turned upside down, right, because this whole system is really turned upside down. That's why it says, because of evil doings, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. And that's what we're waiting for. But this translation of kingdoms is not going to be done, you know, in a smooth transitional way. It's going to be a very rough ride for Esau, for the other nations, for 2/3 of Israel, and for other Israelites that are left on the earth around the world, you know, that are not a part of the 2/3 of America. It says, and if the place where the evil is sown pass not away, then cannot it come that is sown with good. You know, I believe there's a scripture that says something about the day of doom, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just see if I can find that real quick. Let me see if I can find that precept real quick. Right, 2nd Ezra 7:43. Brother put 2nd Ezra 7. It says, let me see what else is here. 7:43. Oh, wow. 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 Okay, then start at 41. Even so now, seeing corruption is grown up, and wickedness increased, and the righteous have prayed for the ungodly, wherefore shall it not be so now also? He answered me and said, this present life is not the end where much glory doth abide, right, which is the kingdom. Therefore have they prayed for the weak. But the day of doom shall be the end of this time, which the word time is synonymous with age and synonymous with the word world, which is eon or seculi or iwulam. And the beginning of the immortality for to come, wherein corruption is past. Right, so if this place doesn't go down, then the kingdom cannot be established, which means Yahushua can't rule until this place goes down, because 2 kings can't sit on the throne. Let's see. It says, intemperance is at an end, infidelity is cut off, righteousness is grown, and truth is sprung up. Yeah. Then shall no man be able to save him that is destroyed, correct, because if you're not a part of the elect, you're going to be destroyed, nor to oppress him that hath gotten the victory, right? So either way, like Yahushua said when he came on the earth 2,000 years ago, he said, a smoking flax shall he not quench, and a something, I forget the rest of the quote, but pretty much he didn't come to bring judgment. You know, he's not going to deliver the ones that are going to be destroyed, and he's not going to destroy the ones that are to be delivered, if that makes any sense. Wow, that's a good one too. Matter of fact, this is all that is made in the world hath the end, and the end is manifest. Even so, the times also of the highest have plain beginnings and wonders and powerful works, and ending in effects and signs, right? And that's why going back to 2nd Ezra, right, 4:36, it says, and unto these things Uriel the archangel gave them answer and said, even when the number of seeds is filled in you, for he hath weighed the world in the balance. Now what happened during the time of the Babylonian Empire? Well, guess what? That was the time for them to go down. They were given a certain amount of time to rule, and then they were given a time to fall. This is why in Daniel 5, right? Daniel 5, and I'll start at 24. It says, then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the writing that was written. Many, many tekel upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing. Many, the Most High had numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Right. Before we read on, let's go to not Isaiah, Job. Let's go to Job, the 14th chapter. And the 5th verse, it says, seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds, that he cannot pass. Right. So there has been a certain set time period for each empire to rule. And usually, in most cases, when one empire would fall and another empire would come up, it would be by wars, calamities, crises, and all that stuff, right? It's no different today. The only time that I could think of when there was just a takeover, which wasn't, there was still violence involved, but not in the manner that most empires fall, was the falling of the Babylonian Empire to the Medo Persians, you know? But in most cases, that's how empires fall, by violence. And once a kingdom is given power to rise, there's always an ending date. You know, there's always a time when that particular empire will fall. And once it gets to that point, it's not going to go any further. It's going to end right where the Lord said it's going to end. And that's where we're at right now with Babylon the Great, America. You know, you're witnessing the labor pains of her destruction. Right? What we're witnessing, like I'll say it again, we're witnessing the labor pains of her destruction. You know, and she's in the 9th month, she's twirling, and you know, and she's starting to get them contractions, and they're starting to get a little closer, you know, but she ain't really entered the phase of extreme pain yet, you know, because once that happens, that's when the baby is going to be born, and that baby is destruction via the lasers from the chariots and the nuclear missiles. All right, so going back, let's read that again in Daniel 5 and 26. This is the interpretation of the thing. Many, the Most High had numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Right. So your kingdom has been numbered and it's coming to a finish, just like the ancient Babylonian Empire came to a finish. It says, Tekel, thou art weighed in the balance and are found wanting. You see? So you're weighed in the balance and you're found wanting, because what is weighed? Your actions. You claim to be a Christian, Bible-believing country, but when you analyze and look at your deeds, everything that you do, everything that you allow, the people that you allow to prosper, they're all things that go against, contrary to what the Most High said that he loves. You do everything hateful, that the Most High hates. So therefore, this place can't continue on, and it won't continue on. Then it says, Perez, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Right, and this kingdom, once it's taken down, it's going to be given to Yahweh Shai. How do you like them apples? All right, so let's go from there. Let's go to the same book of Daniel. It's another precept that came to mind. Let's go to the 2nd chapter. And all right, I'll start at 36. Because, when you read this chapter, the king had a particular dream. He was troubled by the dream, but he couldn't remember the dream. So he called all his magicians, his Chaldeans, the wise men, his counselors, of that time, for them to tell him about the dream that he had and also to interpret the dream. But what happened was he didn't remember the dream. So the wise men were like, well, look, tell us the dream and we'll break it down for you. He said, look, if you can't make known to me the dream, then I know that you already set it up in your mind to lie to me. So if you don't tell me what the dream was about, I'm gonna put you all to death. It's like, God damn. And then they even told him, look, no man, no king has ever asked anybody that. No one can make that known to the king except, it comes from the gods. That's how they put it. Them that whose dwelling are with the gods, that's that's how they put it, because they believed in many gods. But the secret was in the hands of the Most High. And Daniel happened to be one of the wise men. Him and Azariah, Mishael, and Hananiah, they were part of the wise men. And they were part of the ones that were also destined to be destroyed. So Daniel went in the presence of the king and told him to give him some time, and that he would bring forth the mysteries, of this dream to him and the interpretation. And the Lord gave it to him. Why? Because the Most High is a revealer of secrets. So it goes on to say in verse 36, this is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art the king of kings. For the Most High, the power of heaven, hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Key point. Made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold, because at the time, the Babylonian Empire was the top empire above all others. You had different empires back then. The Medo-Persian empires was a force to be reckoned with back then, but they didn't reach their pinnacle yet. But the Babylonians had reached that pinnacle. They had the Assyrians subjected to them. They had all other empires that were subjected to them. So it says, so he's that head of gold. So he actually had a dream of an actual image, a statue. The head of gold, the arms and the chest of silver, the belly and the thighs of brass, the legs of iron, part iron and part clay with the part of the toes. And these all represented different empires that would come and that would go. And what happened? Each empire was absolved from one empire to the next empire. You go all the way back to the beginning. You had Sumer, you had ancient Babylon, you had the Egyptian Empire. All of these empires kept, during that, going way back in the times, the old world was destroyed, so everything had to restart over again. But when empires started to rule, one empire was absolved into the next empire, or translated to the next empire, so on and so forth. This is why we read in history these major empires, which the Bible spoke of these things happening. It spoke about, these different empires coming and going. That's why it's important to know certain secular history to understand what the scriptures are saying concerning these particular beasts, because the scriptures, sometimes it comes straight out and says what it's speaking about, and sometimes it speaks in allegories, in symbols, and then throughout the chapter or other chapters, it breaks down what those symbols are. You see, but then knowing the history, it actually gives you, the ability to know exactly what they're speaking about. Like the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, the Babylonian Empire, so on and so forth. So it goes on to say, where are we at? It says, and after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. So those are the next two empires that ruled after them. They were inferior as far as decadence, because the Babylonian Empire was the most prestigious of those empires, the richest, and each empire that came after them, they didn't have the opulence that the Babylonian Empire had, but they had power. But with that power came the lack of prestige, as far as like luxury. That's why each empire went from gold to silver to brass to iron. So as each empire came in, their opulence wasn't as great as the Babylonian Empire, but their strength, their military power, their military might was stronger. Just like gold is precious, but is not as strong as lead. I'm sorry, as iron. Iron is not precious, but it's stronger. If you had a sword of gold and a sword of iron, which one do you think is going to win? The sword of iron. Even though it's not as fancy looking as the gold, it's not as precious as the gold, but it's a lot stronger. And as you see them different empires, their militaries were a force to be reckoned with. So that was the Babylonian was ahead of gold. The next part, which was the silver, that was the Medo-Persian Empire. The next part after that, which was the brass, that was the Greek Empire. It says, and after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth, because they took over the known world. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. And that strong as iron one was dealing with the what? With the Roman Empire. That was the following kingdom after that, the fourth kingdom. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. And that's exactly what they did. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. Right, and that's the thing with the Roman Empire, especially in these times, because we're in because the legs represent the Roman Empire. The feet and the toes, they were back then, but really the fulfillment of what we're reading is taking place right now. You know, because the 10 toes represent the 10 horns. I believe it said 10 horns in Revelation. You know, the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, correct. It also says that in Daniel 7. And those 10 horns represent the EU. You know, you have the beast, which represents NATO and the EU, but the EU is a representation of those 10 toes or the 10 horns. And the 10 toes and the 10 horns, they're partly strong and partly weak financially. You know, you have your strong EU nations, and then you have your economic wise, and then you have your weak EU nations. You know, years ago, I'm not sure if that was, I forgot what year that was, when the pigs was really heavy in the news. Portugal, Ireland, Greece. What was the other one? Spain and Ireland. Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, and Spain. Pigs. Those are the weaker nations. You know, the ones that were not doing financially well. Then you had Germany. You know, you had others. You know, like out in the area of Switzerland, around there. You know, you had some other European nations that were actually financially stronger, and they had to carry some of the other ones that were weaker, which was messing them up. You know, so this is what that prophecy is speaking about the 10 toes, part of iron and part of miry clay. So it goes on to say, let's see, we're in verse 42. We're almost to the point. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Right, and we just explained that. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, meaning they're going to make, you know, certain leagues and agreements and try to work things out. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Why? Because the Most High is breaking that union up. That's why they won't be able to mix with each other, because there's always going to be a difference. This particular country is not going to agree with the values and so on and so forth of this country and the policy of this one. So there's always going to be something there to divide them, because that's how the Lord is setting it up. A nation divided against itself cannot stand. It says, and in the days of these kings shall the power of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. And that's Yahweh's kingdom / Israel's kingdom, right? And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. You hear that vocab? The kingdom shall not be left to other people. Nobody else is going to benefit from the kingdom of heaven but the Israelites. And no other nation is going to take over the kingdom of heaven once the kingdom of heaven is established on the earth. You heard that, Elder Lahab? You know? Because you have this madness going around that once the kingdom is established, that Esau's going to get the upper hand again. It's like, my goodness. You ain't had enough from this devil in this society, in this kingdom, that you want him to rule again? My goodness. Insanity at his finest. All right? It says, now the other nations will benefit in the kingdom of heaven once they're established after they suffer their punishment. But for the most part, no other nation is going to get the realm or the helm of the kingdom ever again. It will never depart. That's why I said it's going to be a rulership, a dominion forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. It says, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. See? And what does that mean? That means that it's going to go down. The change is going to come through crisis. Change through crisis, as the brother mentioned in his lesson, which I used for a title. Change through crisis. And that's the only way this place is going to go down. It's going to go down by violence, as we just read in the book of Revelation 18. That America, Babylon the Great, is going to go down by violence. That's why the angel picked up the great millstone and cast it into the sea. And said, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. Why? Because they will never ever again be established. Now you've had empires that have fallen, you know, and they were able to kind of recover, but they never amassed back to the greatness that they were as an empire. But they were able to rebuild their military, rebuild financially, but they were subjected to other empires. Once this empire goes down, it will never ever again, you know, rule ever again. It will never be reestablished. You know, the stones of emptiness and the line of confusion is going to be here in this place. You're not going to know where one state ended and where the other one began. You're not going to know where any major buildings, you know, were at, any major theme parks, coliseums, you know, different governmental buildings, Washington, D.C., none of that. There's not going to be any trace of anything here in America. And once the smoke clears, the only thing that will be here are wild desert creatures, you know, whether they're lizards or crows or whatever the case may be, buzzards, eagles, you know, just scavengers, you know, and it's a fitting a future for this place after the destruction. All right, so it says, for as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out without let me read that again. Salakia, got this goddamn gnat. For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it break in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, and the gold, the great power had made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. It says, Salakia. Right, let me read this again, 45. For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain, which that stone is Yahushai, without hands, and that it break in pieces, see, through crisis, through destruction, devastation, the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great power have made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof is sure. Right. because that was a vision that Nebuchadnezzar saw, that Daniel was able to tell him again what the vision was and break it down to him. And that stone is a representation of Yahushai destroying all of those empires and setting up his empire. And that's how we know we're at the end, because we're at the part of the feet with the 10 toes, the part of iron and part of miry clay. And that's how we know we're at the end of this place, you know. And we know that the next step is Yahushai coming back. Never stop lying. What the fuck are you talking about? Stop lying. Won't you just go stick your head, you know, up your ass somewhere, you know? Stop lying. Fuck out of here, you goddamn heathen. And pretty much, you know, this is the end, you know, where everything is at. Yeah, he's nothing but a scoffer, you know, but that's all right. He just marked himself, you know. And this is where we're at in prophecy. That's why you're seeing things going on around the world, you know, the way that is going on. Now, check it out. When you look at the direction that this world is heading, everything is heading in a technological way, you know, a technocrat, you know, ruled by technology, you know. So we're at the point now where this place is actually being set up through technology, through a digital world, because that's pretty much was coming, a digital world. And the reason why everything is going digital is because they want to put everything online to set up their method of payment, which is the MO to the TB, which is the CHIP. And that's it. Everything is headed in that direction. So all of those scoffers, you know, the ones that say that we're lying, you know, the ones that are saying that we just fear mongering and that we're false prophets, this, that, and the other. Well, look at everything that's going on in the world. You know, look at the direction that the economies are going. Not just the economy of America, the economies of the world. Look at the direction that they're going. If the case was that we were lying, then why is everything going in that direction? Why is everything going digital? Why is every other thing that you hear is either cryptocurrency or digital currencies, you know, or online banking, you know, or UBI, Universal Basic Income, or things of that nature? Everything's going digital. Why? Because we're at the end. We're at the point where knowledge has increased and this place is about to be destroyed. And all of the prophecies that are written are being fulfilled to usher in the destruction of this empire, America, Babylon the Great. So I don't understand why. Well, then again, they're either they're blind or they took the bag. You know, they paid off for filthy lucre's sake, and that's what the scriptures say, not to do things for filthy lucre's sake. You know, I mean, I think that might be a good spot to end it at, but the brother did put the precept in 2 Ezra 13, which we'll read a couple of verses off of this, because 2 Ezra 13 really cements how the Lord is coming back to destroy this place. And this is the answer to Revelation 12 and 9. Now, Revelation 19 also explains what Revelation 12 and 9 means, where I saw Satan and his angels fight against Michael and his angels, and Satan was found no more in heaven. Why is that? Because their planes and their jets and all of that stuff, once Yahushua comes and destroys them and makes powder out of them, you know, there's not going to be any more devils going up into heaven. They ain't going to be flying up into heaven. You ain't going to see helicopters, you know, space shuttles, jets, you know, and none of that shit flying in the air. So that's why it says that the place shall no more be found in heaven. And also, they're not going to be establishing any countries or colonies on the planet. 2 Ezra 13 and 3, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven, which is Yahushua and the angels. And when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that was seen under him. Why? Because they're going to be amazed at the strangeness of this, even though they're seeing chariots on a regular, they're filming them, but what they're filming are mostly far away. They're really not seeing them close up. They're not really seeing all of the details, you know, of these chariots. But when the Lord comes, it's going to be evident. It's going to be this gigantic ship. They're going to see angels, or they're going to see other chariots destroying Esau, and they're going to be amazed, and it's not going to be able to be explained. That's why it says that the powers of heaven shall be shaken, meaning these different governmental agencies are not even going to have, you know, answers. Remember, going back, I believe that was in the 50s, when those chariots hovered over the Capitol building, they were nervous. They were scrambling. They sent out the Air Force, the jets. By the time they got there, the chariots had disappeared. So just imagine when they show themselves, and it's more fine detail. You know, you actually see the actual chariot and all of the details of the chariot, the lights and lasers coming out of it, destroying people, destroying planes, destroying helicopters. You know, it's going to be something, man. So it says, when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. Right, under him. Why? Because he's coming from space. He's coming from the top. And whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice. Right, because those are the lasers from the chariots. Like as the earth faileth when it filleth the fire. And after this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number, from the four winds of the heaven. That's dealing with Armageddon. That's dealing with the militaries of the world, to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Right, because they're going to all come together for one purpose, and that's to try to destroy these so-called aliens, which are not aliens. It's Yahweh Shai and the angels. But I beheld, and lo, he had graven himself a great mountain, that was a chariot he flew upon, and flew up upon it. But I would have seen the region of place whereof the hill was graven, and I could not. And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet there's fight. Why? Because the Lord is going to put the spirit in them to fight. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, which are the lasers. You can read about this in Habakkuk, the 3rd chapter. And out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which were prepared to fight, and burned them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid, right, because of the violence. When the Lord comes, the missiles hit, the lasers are blasting, the earth is going to be shaking and rocking and rolling. It's going to be a time as never was before. You know? And the only way you would say, some dickhead would say, stop lying, is because their eyes are not open. Their eyes are not open to what's going on in the world. Their eyes are not open to the prophecies. Their eyes are not open to what the scriptures say of the destruction of this demonic, wicked-ass empire called America, which is Babylon the Great, biblically. Spiritually, Egypt and Sodom, so on and so forth. You know? So pretty much, you know, that's pretty much it. You know, change through crisis. That's what's coming. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say Shalom.